Good evening, and welcome to the Health Promotion Influencer Series for the 2011-2012 academic year. The Health Promotion Influencer Series is a new initiative at Villanova that aspires to encourage a common language for learning and understanding critical college student health issues. Our goal is to empower you to positively influence your students' Villanova experience and beyond. This evening's session focuses on popular eating habits while in college and the concerns associated with any major diet change. Our session is recorded, and you will have access to a copy of this session and all Influencer Series sessions online. So let's get started. My name is Kristen Hamilton, and I am the Coordinator of Nutrition and Fitness within the Office of Health Promotion at Villanova, and I will be presenting this evening's session. I received my bachelor's degree in dietetics from James Madison University and my master's degree in health education from Virginia Tech. I am a registered dietitian and board certified as a specialist in sports dietetics from the American Dietetic Association. I'm also licensed as a dietitian in the state of Pennsylvania. Before joining Villanova, I worked at Georgetown University within dining services as a student's dietitian. My role included individual and group counseling, sports nutrition, dietary concerns, and food allergies, and promoting health via outreach programs and cooking demonstrations. As the coordinator of nutrition and fitness programs at Villanova, I provide students with one-on-one and group education sessions, as well as working with peer educators to develop nutrition and fitness programming. I also teach Healthy Habits, a 10-week healthy lifestyle class to students, staff, and faculty. The Office of Health Promotion is a health education and outreach arm at Villanova. We educate and empower students to balance the various aspects of their life, to take an active approach to their health, and to integrate strategies that reduce the risk for a variety of college student health issues. Now on to our agenda. So as you can see, tonight's series highlights a popular diet in college, the plant-based diet. The session addresses the nutritional aspects of the diet, as well as possible parental concerns associated with any major food choice change. As you can see, we will review the types of plant-based diets as well as the components for a healthy, balanced diet. Finally, this session will review campus resources and what you can do to encourage your student in staying healthy while at Villanova. I encourage you to ask questions throughout the session by using your question feature located on your GoToWebinar dashboard. I will do my best to encourage that your questions are answered in the context of the presentation. However, I cannot guarantee that I will get to every question submitted this evening. If you have a specific question that is not covered, please feel free to email me directly after the presentation. All right, so moving on. We're going to do a poll now. As you can see on the screen, I have asked you to identify the specific diet, if any, your student is currently participating in or considering to follow. Please respond by choosing the number that correlates to the diet. Number 1, vegan. Number 2, vegetarian. Number 3, gluten intolerant or food allergy. Number 4, whole foods, or otherwise known as an unprocessed diet. Or number 5, none of the above. If you are unsure, please choose number 5, none of the above. So now we'll take a moment as we're receiving the data. All right, so it looks like we've got a different mix here. We've got a gluten intolerant or food allergy and one that's either uncertain or none of the above. We're actually going to, continue going with the presentation, understanding that we're going to keep this as, primarily focused on vegan and vegetarianism, but we'll also address some other dining services issues and concerns and hopefully highlight on some of your other questions. So, as stated before, if you do have a specific question or the diet of your student, again, is not part of this agenda, please feel free to contact me via email after the session. All right, now I have a second poll question. I will ask you to identify whether your student is male or female. Please respond by choosing the number that correlates to your student's sex. If you prefer not answering the question, please choose number 3. So number 1, male, 2, female, or number 3, you prefer not to disclose. Your answers will not impact tonight's presentation, but rather they will be used towards planning in future presentations. So please, let's get started. All right. Thank you, folks. All right, moving on. Based on a nationwide poll, approximately 2.3 of the U.S. adult population, or 4.9 million people, consistently follow a vegetarian diet, whereas about 1.4% of the U.S. population is vegan. Research also indicates that 5% of women ages 18 to 34 years of age follow a vegetarian diet. Furthermore, many consumers report an interest in vegetarian diets, and 22% report regular consumption of meatless substitutes for meat products such as soy, beans, lentils, or nuts. This food trend is expected to grow as the public's interest increases and the media continues to highlight plant-based diets. As you will see on the next slide, there are various vegetarian diets. For many people, avoiding animal-derived foods is not merely a dietary choice, but rather one part of their larger worldview and lifestyle choice. In addition to health and disease treatment, some motivations for choosing to follow a vegetarian diet include economics, religious beliefs, environmental concerns, and support for animal rights. The chart above defines the different types of plant-based diets. Veganism is the consumption of only plant products. Vegans use soy, legumes, nuts, and seeds to meet their dietary protein needs. Strict vegans do not consume any animal-derived product, which may include honey, since honey is derived from bees. Lacto-vegetarians consume dairy products, as well as plant-based foods. Dairy products refer to foods derived from animal milk, such as yogurt or goat cheese. Ovo-vegetarians consume eggs, as well as plant-based foods. And lacto-ovo-vegetarians are a combination of both lacto-vegetarian and ovo-vegetarian. These individuals consume both dairy and egg products, as well as plants. Pesco-vegetarians consume fish and shellfish, as well as all plant-based foods. Finally, the most popular of the diet is the last one listed, the flexitarian. A flexitarian refers to an individual who typically consumes a majority of foods from plants, dairy, and eggs, and on occasion will consume either meat, fish, or poultry. It must be noted that it must not be assumed that individuals who describe themselves as vegetarians automatically eat in a healthful manner. As parents of a vegan or vegetarian student, it is important to understand the diet and more important to understand the nutrition needs associated with the choice. Research on the dietary intake of adolescent vegetarians from several countries indicate that although the patterns differ somewhat among countries, adolescent vegetarians tend to consume fewer dairy products, snack foods, and sweets in comparison to their omnivorous adolescent peers. And they also tend to consume more vegetables. Studies also show that disordered eating is common among self-defined adolescent vegetarians. However, this is not true of all adolescent vegetarians, and I will discuss this concern later in the presentation. Moving forward, I will highlight some current food trends. The food trends listed, whole food, organic food, and local food, may be incorporated into your student's plant-based diet. The first trend is the consumption of whole food. The term whole usually refers to foods that are not processed or refined and do not have any added ingredients. Most definitions would include fresh produce, dairy, whole grains, and fish, any food that appears in its most pure form with minimal processing. For example, edamame, a steamed soybean, would be considered a whole food, whereas tofu or tempeh would not, since both of these items require manipulation of the original whole food, the soybean. This diet trend is a positive one, as long as your student is getting the proper nutrients. We will discuss those nutrients later in the presentation. The second food trend is organic, and by now most of you have already heard about the term organic. Organic foods are more environmentally friendly and do not use genetically modified organisms. In some studies, organic foods are higher in nutrient values. The only downfall to organic foods is they are much more expensive and more difficult to find. Consuming organic foods tends to be a personal choice, similar to following a plant-based diet. It must also be noted that there are 3 levels of organic claims. The first claim is 100% organic. This claim indicates the product is completely organic or made of only organic ingredients and must carry the USDA organic seal. The second claim is organic. By law, products carrying the USDA organic seal must be comprised of ingredients that are at least 95% organic. And finally, the last claim is made with organic ingredients. This claim refers to food products in which have at least 70% of ingredients that are certified organic. The USDA seal, organic seal, cannot be used, but the term made with organic ingredients may appear on its packaging. And finally, the last food trend, and one of the biggest pushes in the food world, is consuming local foods. Local refers to the proximity of the food's origin to where the food is being purchased. There is no single definition of local or local food systems in terms of the geographic distance between production and consumption. Although according to the New Oxford American Dictionary, the term locavore represents individuals particularly sensitive to food miles and encourages buying from farmer markets or growing your own foods. The local food push is to support the environment by decreasing food transportation, supporting the local economy, and by obtaining the most nutrient content from your foods, by eating them straight from the farm, not 2 weeks after being picked. So it's pretty easy to become a locavore at Villanova. Let's take a look. If you're looking to increase your consumption of local foods, try visiting a farmer's market. Farmers markets keep small farms in business through direct sales rather than going through a middleman. If you need to find a farmer's market in your area or around Villanova, try the Lancaster Farmers Market in Wayne, Pennsylvania. It's open Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Another option is to choose 5 foods in your home or dorm that you could buy locally. Rather than trying to source everything locally at once, try swapping out just 5 local foods. Fruits and vegetables that can be grown throughout the continental U.S. include apples, root vegetables, lettuce, herbs, and greens. In most areas, it's possible to find poultry, eggs, milk, and cheese, all grown and harvested and produced close to your home. Around Villanova, many of the local farms are located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Another option is to find a local CSA and sign up. CSA stand for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's where you invest in a local farm in exchange for a weekly box of assorted vegetables and other farm products. CSA programs take the work out of buying the local food as the farmer does the worrying for you. You could search for CSAs in your area by visiting localharvest.org, or you could encourage your student to join Villanova's CSA partner, Lancaster Farm Fresh Cooperative. And they actually deliver all the foods on campus, so your student could actually be picking up local food right here at Villanova. You can also find out what restaurants in your area support local farmers. You can do this by asking the restaurant about the ingredients that they use, and asking which of their favorite farmers, or asking your favorite farmer which restaurants they have accounts for. And you can frequent the businesses that support those farmers. Also, the next time you want to take your student out in Villanova, you could look up businesses with local foods at www.buylocalpa.org. And finally, buy from local vendors. If you can't find food grown locally, how about locally produced? Many areas have locally produced jams, jellies, and breads, as well as locally roasted coffee and locally created confections. While these businesses may not always use strictly local ingredients in the products, by purchasing them, you are supporting the local economy. So how does purchasing food translate to eating food?
Kristen, before we jump into the healthy eating plate, we had a question come in from a parent that I'd like to pose to you.
Great.
The question is kind of going back to when you're talking about types of vegetarian diets. The parent had asked, how common is it for students who previously in high school were not vegetarians or vegans, quote-unquote, go vegetarian or vegan while they're in college?
It's actually fairly common. When we went back to that last statistic, the 5% between the ages of 18 to, I believe it was in your late 20s, ends up being the highest percentage total, and it's actually even higher than the total overall percentage, and that just ends up being the majority of the folks there. So it is a high percentage. The other reason for students changing their diet, one is that they've left the home, they're in school, and the other is they're starting to learn about food production. They learn about it in class, they learn about it through the media, and they feel as though this is their time to either make a change within themselves or for the environment or for animals. So it is fairly common.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're going to take a look at the healthy eating plate. The easiest way to ensure your student is meeting his or her dietary needs is by following the healthy eating plate. The plate helps ensure the proper proportions of all food groups. As you can see, a healthy diet consists of a balance of foods. It is important to consume fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and unsaturated fats. Please remember, your student does not need to consume milk at every meal, but should ensure calcium requirements are being met. We will discuss this further in the presentation. So moving on, we'll discuss protein. All right. Plant protein can meet the protein requirements when a variety of plant foods is consumed and energy needs are met, meaning calories. Research indicates that an assortment of plant foods eaten over the course of a day can provide all the essential amino acids the body requires. It must be noted, vegans and vegetarians typically require more protein than the recommended dietary allowance, or the RDA. This is because the dietary protein sources are mainly those that are less well digested, such as some cereals and legumes. Although some vegan women have protein intakes that are marginal, the typical protein intakes of vegetarians and of vegans appear to meet and exceed requirements. So that's good news. Listed above are some various types of plant-based proteins. As a dietitian, I would always recommend students try new foods. Thus, as a parent, you may want to help the process too by being supportive while grocery shopping for new foods or suggesting to modify a family favorite recipe with a plant-based protein. Moving forward, I have listed the protein content of some vegan foods. As you can see, the list provides the amount of protein in grams for each portioned item, as well as the amount of protein per 100 calories. Seitan, the wheat-based protein, significantly offers the most protein per gram. Other foods with high amounts of protein include soybeans, tempeh, and tofu. These are all soy-based foods. Next on the slide are legumes, otherwise referred to as beans and lentils. As addressed in the previous slide, not only the amount, but also the variety of protein sources is very important for a plant-based diet. Now we will move on to iron. The iron in plant foods is non-heme iron. Non-heme iron is much more sensitive to absorption. Thus, it is important to incorporate vitamin C and other organic acids found in fruits and vegetables, which can substantially enhance iron absorption and thereby improve iron status. Because a lower bioavailability of iron from a vegetarian diet, because of the lower bioavailability of iron from a vegetarian diet, the recommended iron intakes for vegetarians are 1.8 times those of non-vegetarians. That means vegan and vegetarian men need 14 milligrams of iron a day, and premenopausal women require 33 milligrams of iron a day. Research indicates the incidence of iron deficiency anemia among vegetarians is similar to that of non-vegetarians. Some good food sources of iron in plant foods include fortified foods, typically those in cereals, beverages, protein bars, and soy products, green vegetables, such as spinach, kale, or broccoli, beans, including soybeans and lima beans, and some dried fruit, including apricots and raisins. Moving on, we'll discuss calcium. In the EPIC-Oxford study, the risk of bone fracture was similar for lacto-ovo vegetarians and meat eaters, whereas vegans had a 30% higher risk fracture, possibly due to their considerably lower mean calcium intake. Some studies also show the ratio of dietary calcium to protein is a better predictor of bone health than calcium intake alone. Typically, the ratio is high in lacto-ovo vegetarian diets and favors bone health, whereas vegans have a ratio of calcium to protein that is similar to or even lower than that of non-vegetarians. Many vegans may find it easier to meet their calcium needs if calcium-fortified foods or dietary supplements are utilized. Fortified foods such as fruit juices, soy milk, and rice milk, and breakfast cereals can contribute a significant amount of dietary calcium for vegans. Green vegetables, including bok choy, broccoli, Chinese cabbage, collards, and kale are also good sources of bioavailable calcium. Next, we'll move on to vitamin B12. The vitamin B12 status of some vegetarians is less than adequate due to not regularly consuming reliable sources of B12. Lacto-ovo vegetarians can obtain adequate vitamin B12 from dairy sources such as eggs and other reliable B12 sources such as fortified foods and supplements. For vegans, vitamin B12 must be obtained from regular use of vitamin B12 fortified foods such as fortified soy and rice beverages, some breakfast cereals and meat analogs, or Red Star, a vegetarian support formula nutritional yeast. Otherwise, a daily B12 supplement is needed. Please note, no unfortified plant food contains any significant amount of active vitamin B12. Thus, you must supplement this. Next, we'll move on to vitamin D. All right, vitamin D has long been known to play a role in bone health. Vitamin D status depends on sunlight exposure and the intake of vitamin D fortified foods or supplements. The extent of vitamin D production following sunlight exposure is highly variable and dependent on a number of factors, including the time of day, seasons, latitude, skin pigmentation, sunscreen use, and age. Low vitamin D intakes have been reported in some vegan groups who did not use vitamin D supplements or fortified foods. Foods that are fortified with vitamin D include cow's milk, some brands of soy milk, rice milk, and orange juice, and some breakfast cereals and margarines. Both vitamin D2 and vitamin D3 are used in supplements into fortified foods. If sun exposure and intake of fortified foods are insufficient to meet needs, vitamin D supplements are recommended. There's also a greater need for zinc in the plant-based diet. The bioavailability of zinc from vegetarian diets is typically lower than that of non-vegetarian diets. Zinc intakes of vegetarians vary, with some research showing zinc intakes near recommendations and other research finding zinc intakes of vegetarians significantly below recommendations. Thus, it is important for your student to monitor his or her sources of dietary zinc to compensate with a multivitamin when intake is inadequate. Zinc sources include soy products, legumes, grains, cheese, and nuts. And finally, we'll discuss omega-3 fatty acids. So what are the types of omega-3 fatty acids? The long chain of omega-3 comes from marine sources such as fish, or more specifically from the microalgae the fish eat. The two primary types of long-chain omega-3s are EPA and DHA. Short-chain omega-3s come from plant sources like flax, canola oil, and walnuts. The primary short-chain omega-3 is ALA. Our bodies can convert ALA into EPA and DHA, the long-chain acids, but research suggests that human bodies can be insufficient at the conversion process. So if you want to maximize the health benefits of omega-3, concentrate on getting most of your omega-3s from the long chain of the EPA, DHA sources. A healthy diet should consist roughly of 2 to 4 times more omega-6 fatty acids than omega-3 fatty acids. A typical North American diet may contain 11 to 30 times more omega-6 fatty acids than omega-3. So your student can consume more omega-3s by selecting natural sources of EPA and DHA. For example, by eating fish a few times a week, or by consuming EPA and DHA fortified foods, including some brands of milk. If your student is a strict vegan or vegetarian, there are fish-free omega-3 supplements available on the market. Finally, to wrap up the supplement segment, the best way to ensure your student is meeting his or her needs is by meeting with a registered dietitian. When in doubt, the use of a multivitamin may be helpful, especially for those individuals who do not consume fortified foods. All right, so now we're going to open up to another poll question. As you can see on the screen, I have asked you to identify if you believe your student is meeting his or her nutrient needs while at college. Please respond by choosing a number that correlates to your answer. 1, yes. 2, no. 3, maybe. Or 4, you're still not sure. All right, make sure that you're answering the questions. All right, maybe. Well, this is an important question to consider. It can be difficult as a parent to ensure your student is maintaining his or her nutrient needs while at school. There are resources at Villanova to ensure your student is being healthy. So, when in doubt, suggest to your student to take advantage of those resources. If you're not sure or you think your student may be missing nutrients due to other issues, review the following list for a potential problem. As a parent, it is important to understand the reason behind following a diet as well as the diet itself. Some of the underlying reasons for dietary changes can relate to restrictive eating as a means for weight loss or to further restrict an already disordered eating plan. Thus, it is your role to ask the question, why? Why does my student follow a vegetarian or vegan diet? So how do you know if your student is consuming enough? Well, there's a few markers you can look for. The first being preoccupied with body appearance. It is certainly not out of the ordinary for adolescents to be concerned with their appearance. However, frequent comments regarding their weight or shape, comparisons to athletes on TV or models in fitness magazines, and questions such as, do I look fat? Do I look any bigger? May be indications of an unhealthy preoccupation with the size and shape of their body. Spending an excessive amount of time in front of the mirror and daily use of the scale to check body weight are further signs that your student is at risk. The second sign is strange eating behaviors. Extreme changes in food consumption may indicate your student is making an effort to gain or lose an unhealthy amount of weight. Failure to eat an excessive amount, starting new dietary habits in response to weight, or the tracking of calories and nutrients may be attempts to alter body weight and or composition. Physically active adolescents who are concerned with appearance and performance may also use dietary supplements or fat-burning pills or in attempts to gain weight, gain muscle mass, or lose fat. Your student may even choose to substitute supplements for regular meals. It is important to understand that although many supplements are advertised as being healthy and safe, the long-term health consequences of usage for many dietary supplements are unknown. Furthermore, by law, dietary supplements are not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. The third sign is extreme changes in appearance. Changes in food consumption and or the use of supplements may result in changes in the appearance of your student. Teens who restrict their diet will likely lose a large amount of weight in a short period of time. Hair loss, pale skin, and fatigue are common signs of inadequate nutrition. Another sign is changes in personality. Along with changes in appearance, personality changes may also occur as your student attempts to gain or lose weight. Uncharacteristic moodiness, aggravation, or fatigue are signs that your student's dietary changes are having a negative influence on his or her well-being. And the last sign are new priorities. The key sign that your student has an unhealthy interest in food or exercise is when people and activities that were once highly valued become secondary to the goal of improving appearance or maintaining their diet. For example, an invitation to go out to eat, even to their favorite restaurant, may be rejected in order to adhere to their strict diet. School performance may also suffer among students who prioritize their new habits over homework or studying. If you have noted some of these signs in your student, it may be time you have a conversation. So moving on, you will see that if you do think that there's a concern, there are some steps you can take. The first step, set up a time to talk. Set aside a time for a private, respectful meeting without the interruption to discuss your concerns openly and honestly in a caring, supportive way. Make sure you will be someplace away from other distractions. Attempt to make the location a safe place for your student, such as within the comfort of your home rather than trapped in a car. Have the conversation outside of a meal. It is important for your student not to associate these talks with food, but rather with your concern. And remember, have this conversation in person. Communicate your concerns. Share your memories of specific times when you felt concerned about your students' eating or exercise behaviors. Explain that you think these things may indicate that there could be a problem that needs professional attention. Ask your student to explore these with a counselor, a doctor, dietitian, or other health professional who is knowledgeable about eating issues. And remind your student that these services are free at Villanova within the Health Services Building. Avoid conflicts. Going back to the previous slide, we're going to hit number 3. Avoid conflicts or a battle of wills with your student. If your student refuses to acknowledge that there's a problem or any reason for you to be concerned, restate your feelings and the reasons for them, and leave yourself open and available as a supportive listener. This step is typically the most difficult, but fighting with your student will not solve the problem or make your student feel comfortable talking to you in the future. The fourth step would be avoid placing shame, blame, or guilt on your student regarding their actions or attitudes. Do not use accusatory you statements like you just need to eat or you are acting irresponsibly. Instead, use I statements. For example, I am concerned about you because you refuse to eat breakfast or lunch. Avoid giving simple solutions. For example, if you just stop, then everything would be fine. These problems may take time for your student to recognize, and the healing process can take even longer. And finally, express your continued support. Remind your student that you care and you want him or her to be happy and healthy. And finally, remember, if after talking to your student you are still concerned with their health, find a medical professional to talk to. So what does Villanova University offer their students? We do have a bunch of campus resources, and depending on the need or the concern, so physical and psychological resources can be handled in the Health Services Building. Within the Health Services Building, there is the Student Health Center and the Holloway Counseling Center. Additionally, the Office for Health Promotion, which is the office I work within, offers free nutrition consultations as well as nutrition education course called Healthy Habits. And finally, for food-specific questions or concerns, and this may even go back to a food allergy or a gluten intolerance, you want to reach out to Villanova Dining Services. So on the next slide, you will see some of the current initiatives and the contact person within Dining Services. So Dining Services does offer options for vegans and vegetarians, as well as special dietary concerns such as gluten intolerance or food allergies. They also have a brown bag lunch program for busy students. And I will mention, if your student does have a special dietary concern, such as a gluten intolerance or a food allergy, they can still participate in the brown bag lunch option. So just because they have a gluten intolerance does not mean that they're eliminated from this group. So if your student is interested in signing up for a brown bag lunch program, you can tell your student to visit the meal plan office or to contact the office via email at diningservices@villanova.edu. The dining hall also offers various health options, and they've eliminated all trans fat and MSG in all the food items. Also, this November, Villanova began participating in Meatless Monday, a nonprofit initiative with the goal of reducing meat consumption in order to improve personal health and the health of the planet. Each Monday, Villanova Dining Services will adjust the menu options by featuring a new meatless meal. To learn more about Meatless Monday, visit www.meatlessmonday.com. And finally, for a food-specific question pertaining to the dining halls, please contact Gail Gamble, the Dining Services Nutritionist and Chef, and that is on your slide. Now, before I finish the presentation and start answering some of your questions, I would like to provide you with some more information on how to broaden your knowledge. Now, this knowledge is really focused on vegan and vegetarian diets, and for those of you who may have a student who's following a vegan and vegetarian diet, you might want to understand why are they following this diet, and stay current with the topics that they're reading and learning about. So some of the sources you could check out are PETA2, which is a subdivision of PETA, a worldwide organization that protects animal rights and promotes veganism, and PETA2's focus is primarily within higher education. Forks Over Knives examines the profound claim that most, if not all, diseases that afflict us can be controlled or even reversed by rejecting animal-based foods and processed foods. The China study details the connection between nutrition and heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And finally, the Vegetarian Resource Group is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the public on vegetarianism and the interrelated issues of health, nutrition, ecology, ethics, and world hunger. So I would like to thank all of you for joining us this evening.
Before we conclude, we did have a couple questions that came in, Kristen.
Great.
And I'd like to just remind those of you who may have joined us a little late, there is a question feature in your dashboard, and we do have some time left in the presentation. Please weigh in with your questions as Kristen is answering those that have come in, particularly if you came in with some specific areas of interest that we may have not hit on yet at this presentation. So we'll go ahead and pose some of those questions now to Kristen, and please take a moment to send in your question if you do still have one. So, Kristen, right now we have a question that dates back to your slide on how do you know, where we talked about various signs of some disordered eating patterns or when a student's diet may take a turn for concern. And the question that came in is, many of these signs and symptoms that you talked about, from body image, eating habits, physical appearance, emotion, personality change, new priorities, if as the parent they're not physically here, so how do you propose they sort of get at some of that information if they can't physically see their student as easily as they might have in high school and you know, through their childhood?
Sure. Well, the Thanksgiving break is coming up, and that's probably where I would double check and see what your student looks like, especially if your student's a freshman. Typically parents see their student and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, I haven't seen you in a while and things have changed, and that might be, you know, the biggest sign, the biggest indication. I do know some parents do Skype with their students, or they go on Facebook, and I would hate to say they stalk, but they do look at the photos that their students have taken of themselves, just to keep an eye. The other thing is just to have open conversations when you can. Make sure that you're touching base with them, making sure that they are enjoying themselves here, that the transition has been successful. If they've had, you know, some issues with roommates or concerns with schoolwork, you know, those are some other signs that things might not be going as well as they seem to portray. So that could also, you know, kind of lead into maybe a concern.
And certainly, as you alluded to, proper nutrition is a critical component of their ability to academically succeed as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So the two could be related.
Absolutely.
You know, and being an active parent, you could just suggest, hey, why don't you go and visit the dietitian? Why don't you just go over and make a consultation? It's free. It's a lot cheaper right now than if you do it later in life. And, you know, let it be our responsibility, too, to see if something's going on. We will pick up on those things, and we do have the resources on campus to handle them as well.
Okay, we have another couple questions. The next one ties in very nicely to your allusion to the holidays coming up, and certainly most of our parents will be seeing their student over the break. Are there certain things you might suggest parents avoid saying that draws particular attention to weight gain or loss that might upset the student, and how might they navigate that?
You know, it really depends. If your student has lost a tremendous amount of weight, obviously you do want to address that. Now, if your student has gained weight, you do want to address that, but you need to also be mindful of how you address that. And again, being overly concerned will upset the student. So really, again, going back to that slide where you say, present your concern, but make sure that you say, oh, just eat more, or just eat less, or eat healthier. Don't use those. Come up with realistic ideas where it may be, if you're concerned that they're not eating some of the foods, well, why aren't you eating some of the foods? Why have you lost all of this weight? And what can I do to help? And the same for if there has been a lot of weight gain. Going back to, well, what can I do? Do you want different snacks? You know, what's going on? And just try to play an active role.
Kristen, I think that's an excellent suggestion. Some things that we hear anecdotally from our students here is when they get those care packages from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or whoever might be sending them, that sometimes a mixture, a nice balance of those snacks they love, but also some healthy snacks would be much appreciated, because sometimes getting a ton of those, what they might deem to be unhealthy or bad, quote-unquote, snacks, it creates a stress for them, and sometimes they will give them away to avoid the stress of having them in their room. So I think balancing, again, just acknowledging that, you know, there are no good and bad foods, but students certainly have these perceptions about what is good and bad, and it could play into some of their food thinking.
Yeah, and if you're concerned that your student's not eating enough too, give them gift cards, but make sure they're gift cards to grocery stores, to Trader Joe's, or to restaurants they'd like to visit, say Chipotle, or I know Subway. A lot of these restaurants have gift cards, and you can really encourage them to kind of start taking an active role. And that's really what you need to do, is have them take an active role in their lifestyle, in their health, and start realizing that they are adults, and it's time to do that.
Kristen, we had a couple questions come in related to the same area, and I think what our parents are looking for is for you to be a little more explicit in terms of how a student might make an appointment to talk with you and what kinds of things you might discuss in a typical one-on-one with students.
Sure. Well, any student can contact me, and they can just either send me an email, or they can call our office or visit our website. And all the information was actually on the earlier slide for information on our website. And really just tell your student to reach out, to call and schedule that one-on-one appointment. And the appointment could just be, hey, I'm curious, I want to come in. I have had students that have come in and told me, hey, my parent told me I need to make an appointment and I should come in. And it's been as simple as that. And so then I take the time to pry a little bit more and find out, okay, so what is mom or dad? What are they worried about, or why did they tell you to come in? And some students say, well, you know, they do have a concern. Or other students just say, hey, you're here, you're free, and they think that I should take advantage of it. And we'll really go through. I do have the student provide, you know, their recent medical history, their diet history. So I get a lot of information walking in, and I also make them fill out why they're meeting with me. So it makes them think about it a little bit too, so they kind of have an idea of why are they walking in the door, so that I can anticipate what to address with them.
And then do you want to talk a little bit more about healthy habits as well?
Sure. So Healthy Habits is taught every fall and every spring. It's 10 weeks long, and really the point is for students who are interested in nutrition and healthy living to learn more about it. So I teach the course. It's free. It's non-credit. And it meets once a week for 1 hour, and we do a variety of activities. We actually look at behavior change modification, so we actually all pick a goal, myself included, to work on, and then we actually learn about food and diet and well-being. And most recently this semester, we actually took a field trip to a grocery store. We're going to be doing a fitness program in the next coming up weeks, and we'll also be having a cooking demonstration. So some of those things are just fun, different things to do, and then you also get to meet other peers, other students, that have similar interests.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions that we had come in. So just a reminder to all of you, as Kristen is concluding, we will stay on the line just for a few more moments if you do want to weigh in, and Kristen can respond to those questions.
All right, great. Well, I'd like to thank you again for joining us this evening. And I hope that this has been able to broaden your understanding of plant-based diets as well as other eating trends and specific needs associated with vegan and vegetarian diets. This concludes the influencer session on nutrition. Within the next several weeks, this presentation recording will be available on the Influencer Series website. Please also watch for announcements in the Fresh at News and the Soft at News newsletters with regard to presentation recordings. Our next Influencer Series session for the 2011-2012 academic year takes place on Tuesday, January 24th from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The session will focus on body image as well as the challenges associated with raising your young adults in a society obsessed with the unobtainable beauty and the thin ideal. I hope you will be able to join us again and have a happy and healthy evening. Thank you.
Again, just a reminder that we will stand by just for a few moments, so if you do have any other questions, we're happy to still take them. Okay, Kristen, we had another question come in.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's see here. Does the meal plan dining outlet have an increasingly healthy diet? So can you speak to a lot of the issues you talked to tonight and how the dining hall accommodates a lot of those nutrients needs that you had talked about in the presentation?
Sure. The dining hall has a variety. So I will say that if your student follows what they would consider a very healthy diet, they will have that, as well as some of the other items that any food or university or restaurant would offer, including French fries. And it's really supposed to be the student's home away from home. Now, the dining hall does have vegan and vegetarian proteins available. They've got beans, they've got lentils, they've got a vegan soup every single day. They have a vegan burger. They've got tofu, they have edamame. They've got a ton of different things available. And then with that Meatless Monday, they are also doing some further initiatives there, and they're going to be bringing in a different selection. So they do have an outstanding amount of food choices. I will also say that their salad bar, and this is in the all-you-can-eat facilities, the larger dining halls, is phenomenal. This is the only school that I've ever seen. I've been to a few schools. I've visited a lot of dining campuses, but this is the only one that has a huge assortment of fresh fruits, dried fruits, berries. You don't see berries at any school. The fact that they do have the edamame out on the salad bar is huge. They do have a huge variety of different food products that, again, you don't see at every university. They also have rice pastas, and that's a gluten-free option, and it's also a very expensive option for those of you who aren't aware. And it's another thing that Villanova's doing just to make sure that their students are getting all of the nutrients and all the macronutrients they need.
And I think one thing we find is generally when we ask for something with our dining services, they will always find a way to accommodate. So I know that students with very specific kinds of diets or intolerances or food allergies, all they need to do is really ask, and they will work to accommodate the student in the dining halls that they typically eat. And I know Kristen has been involved with that as well.
And I really recommend, it's not so much you or even me saying something to dining services. It's having the student communicate if they are looking for something. If they do need something, they need to communicate it to dining services, because as much as we may worry or concern over different things, it's not until the student addresses it do they really say this is a legitimate concern.
Kristen, we had a specific question come in that says, for example, is Villanova discontinuing all use of that famously processed corn syrup? And it says, can't exactly remember the name of it.
The high fructose corn syrup, they have been in talks about discontinuing high fructose corn syrup. Where they stand right now is they are not going to bring any more food items onto campus that contain high fructose corn syrup. So those items that do contain high fructose corn syrup and are available on campus will not be removed. They are not going to bring in any additional items with the high fructose or any kind of corn syrup.
And I'm not sure for our parent who asked that question, we also recently in the last 5 years also went trans fat free. So that was a pretty big deal several years ago. And Kristen, I don't know if you could speak to how common that is on other campuses.
I will say that is fairly common. Okay. On other campuses. I think that was, a big health concern again, 4 or 5 years ago. So most campuses have gone that route, although not all restaurants have. Great. So again, I think a lot of universities have tried to make their students healthier, whether they wanted to or not. But, they at least give the options to make sure that they can find the balance they need.
Great. Well, I have not seen any other questions come in after those several, so I think it's safe to say we will end this evening. But just to reiterate again, as Kristen mentioned, please feel free to reach out to the office, to Kristen, with additional questions or concerns that you might have on this topic.
Absolutely. And you can get our information on the website, so you can see that goes for the influencer series, but if you take off the influencer, the very end of that website, you can get to our homepage.
Great. Have a wonderful evening.